Alright people, what is happening? Today we will be discussing a video and we will be making a video in regards to Viktor's changes, so let me just switch the screen really fast. And here I am as well. So today we're going to be discussing the upcoming Viktor changes, and there's quite a few of them, and there's a lot of major changes that a lot of people didn't even expect so far. I certainly didn't expect them. So without further ado, this will be a video that will be going on YouTube from my Twitch VODs, and you can catch me at twitch.tv/asdu, just for reference, and yeah, let's get into it. So first and foremost, I knew that Viktor was getting some changes with this rework. That was just obvious. It was a no-brainer. Um, Initially, I thought that he's going to receive changes only to his hex core's W augmentation, since I do feel that it's really lackluster at this point of the game, and at this point of the game's development. However, I have been pretty shocked to realize that later on they've sent out a tweet that is actually stated that they want to remove Viktor's one-man show, pretty much, so to say, role in the game itself. And they wanted to make him more of a team fighter with more of a sustained slash burst orientated champion and not that much of a pure burst champion with instant damage. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much what I expected. I expected maybe some slight changes to the way that his ultimate works, since they wanted to add a bit of more sustained damage. But I really didn't expect the severity of the scope of the change to reach this level. So at this point, I really didn't expect the whole kit rework, and I'm actually surprised by some of the changes. And I do believe that a lot of the positives and the benefits far outweigh the negatives in this situation, and I will explain to you why. It's not really a matter of oh look, at first glance he looks really nerfed because of the delayed explosion on the laser or something like that. I'm completely on the other side of this one. I know that a lot of people are not happy with the changes, and I know that a lot of people are um, really not into the fact that Viktor's getting his kit reworked like this, specifically in this pattern. Um, but I am completely against these thoughts. I think that the rework is actually much needed, and it's actually going to fit him much better in his playstyle, in this current meta. And if the meta doesn't shift away from the tank meta for quite a while, I do believe that Viktor is going to be in a really good spot, and I will start explaining to you why in just a second. So, first and foremost, I would like to start with the fact that he will be extremely team comp reliant. That is a no-brainer. He will need a team that's going to have a lot of lockdowns. By lockdowns, I'm talking about hard engage, with stuns, preferably stuns. If not stuns, then continuous slows. So we're talking about something like Maokai's Twisted Advance, as well as the Ground Stomp, which slows enemies and knocks them up, so you can get enough time for your laser to actually deploy its secondary charge. Um, we're talking about stuff like Scion, we're talking about stuff like Nautilus, which are pretty much meta at this point in the game's development. And I gotta get the mic a bit closer here. I do believe that it's... Actually, I can put it down a bit. Hmm. Okay, is it good like this? Let me just pull it out a bit more. Okay. So, at this current stage of the game, I do believe that it's much better if he actually goes with these changes. Like I said, he's going to be extremely team comp reliant, and he's going to depend even more on his team. He's going to be also a bit more of a niche pick, simply because of the way his kit works. He's still going to be that universal mage that you can pick in almost any situation, but the thing is that um, he's going to be a bit more of a niche pick, simply because he's going to be, in a way, limited, not to a good amount, not to a big extent, but he's going to be slightly limited in his viability when it comes to the team comp and how your team actually builds around your character, or if you can actually pick it because your team actually picked the champions before you. Um, so initially starting with the Q, they're trying to do something which is going to slightly give him a fighting chance if he misses his Q. and they're trying to revert some of the power, and they're trying to shift it back to how it was before the rework, which was pretty much instant damage on the cast itself, on the projectile, and a bit of a lower damage on the attack, the empowered attack. Um, they're slightly buffing the shield as well, which is interesting. I do believe that he's going to do fairly well with the archangels, especially when his basic casts have such a high amount of mana. And to be fair, the laser costs a lot of mana, so the percentage of the mana spent goes into refund from the Archangel's new passive is going to be pretty good when it comes to Viktor's mana management, as well as the bonus mana pool, which is going to increase the shield's capacity even further. With that said though, they're kind of shifting the power. The cooldown is going to be lowered a bit, but that's only on the lower levels. I don't believe that it's going to be any kind of an issue, and it's not going to impair his laning phase in any way. That's going to pretty much help him when it comes to something like dealing with a LeBlanc, because as you all know, it's pretty hard to get your auto attack on something like a LeBlanc if you're going for an all-in burst, because you pop your ulti down, you pop your laser down, and she pretty much pops invisible and she disappears from you for a second. So actuating the auto attack is very hard. But yeah, overall I'm not really shocked with the changes to the Q. They're making it more of a linear spell. It's not that dependent on the auto attack, which is sometimes bugged as well when you take into account that sometimes the auto attack doesn't even go through and there's a really huge delay. One thing that I wanted to see about the Q changes is there's actually a few things that I wanted to see, not very many things after this rework, but I do feel that they could have added a few more things, and I'm going to be discussing them at the end of the video. So that's pretty much all there is to the Q changes. I'm not really going to go too much into depth with that one. I don't really feel like I need to. Now, when it comes to his death ray got hit the most, and again, I have a couple of ideas about the death ray as well. Well, pretty much only one idea. I just want the delay to be reduced to 1 second instead of 1.25, which is, I think, a bit too much. However, I do feel that the death ray change is really good, and the main reason why it's really good is because it solves a lot of the laning problems with Viktor. So his dueling potential against... Okay, his main problems were LeBlanc and Zed. Like, everyone can agree on that. LeBlanc and Zed are pretty hard to manage. However, the way they've solved the problems, I'm talking about Riot in general, the way they solve the problems against assassins in particular is they took away the instant power of the death ray, and as you all know, when it comes to dueling assassins, you basically need to pump out as much damage instantly as you can so you can just overpower their damage and they'll just win the trade. However, that's no longer the case, so it's going to be nearly impossible to get the secondary explosion, your death ray, and I'm pretty sad to say, but dueling assassins 1v1 is going to be impossible. It will be extremely hard unless you're really far ahead. With that said, however, you will win the lane purely by attrition, and the death ray currently is going to be so powerful that it's going to allow you, if you're slightly ahead of the enemy, to clear the entire wave. That opens a huge amount of possibilities for Viktor. First, you will win against hard matchups, against heavy matchups. You will win purely by attrition. You will win by pushing the wave, completely dominating the laning phase with just pushing and just obliterating the enemy's front line, so he pretty much is forced to focus on the enemy creeps, and that in general will take his gaze off you, and his focus will completely drop off you unless he wants to go with 30 or 40 CS behind you, which is pretty much going to be really bad for him if he doesn't get a couple of kills, so he doesn't get the gold back. So that's one way that they're actually making him deal with assassins much easier, and in my opinion, it's a really good change because it solves his laning phase against assassins. Currently, it's really hard to clean the backline with your augmented death ray before level 9 if you don't have the perfect rune setup with scaling AP and full AP and a couple of APs on a blue. However, after this change, you will be able to clear the whole wave. And you'll be able to deal with assassins. The secondary thing that I like about this laser is that it's going to open a lot of rotation and a lot of ganking possibilities to Viktor. What I mean by that is basically you're going to take a lot of the downtime that you have to spend when you're cleaning the wave after your initial death race cast. That's going to be a no, not really an issue. This with the changes, um, it means that when you clear the wave as fast as you can with a single death ray cast, and then you finish it off with maybe one or two auto attacks. I don't even know if you're slightly behind. If you're ahead, you're pretty much going to clean the whole wave. You have a lot of free time to actually rotate to the bottom or to the top lane, and that's not also going to allow you to rotate, but that's going to put even more pressure on the enemy, on the enemy's mid laner. So the death rate changes, in my opinion, are extremely good. Um, they help they help solve a lot of Viktor's issues, if you will, in the laning phase against heavy hard matchups. Um, I'm going to stop right here before the Chaos Storm, and I'm just going to say that Ghost will be Ghost will pretty much be core on Viktor in the majority of cases. It was really good before, but it's going to be, in my opinion, really good after the changes. Simply because if you combine it with something like a Rallies, you will be able to just pretty much be a kiting machine. If you get something like an early distortion, you will be... the way the Ghost works is it will give you a lot of uptime on your ulti. Of course, it's a great defensive tool, but at the same time, you want to keep your ulti up as much as you can on the target. And the faster you are, and the closer you are to the target, the closer you, the faster that you close in on the target, the more damage your ulti is going to do. And the way they actually rework the ultimate just facilitates the Ghost playstyle to pretty much nothing that we've seen before. And yeah, that's pretty much it about. I think like the Ghost is going to be extremely good. Um, let's talk about the Chaos Storm a bit. The Chaos Storm's initial damage got nerfed by a really good amount, I believe. The scaling is slightly lower, to down to 50% from a 55% AP scaling, and the base damage is slightly lower as well. But if you get a second explosion on the death rate, that's going to be not an issue because it compensates for the fact that you actually get the extra damage from the death ray. Now the tick damage is increased heavily. On the final level, you can actually see that it deals up to 350 damage per tick with a 60% scaling AP ratio, which is going to mean that if you have a Void Staff at the end game and if you have like over 900 AP, it will pretty much deal around 700, slightly over 700 damage, I believe, per tick, which is going to be absolutely insane. Now the problem is the tick frequency got increased, but that's actually pretty good, and I will explain why it's good in this current meta. It is really good because it's basically a tank meta, but it's not a high mobility tank meta. What I mean by that, Riven is not really that viable, although she was built slightly tanky with a Titan Hydra, and she was built with Cleaver, which gives her large amounts of HP, as well as cooldown reduction, which facilitate a really tanky playstyle, while still dishing a good amount of damage. Fiora is slightly out of the meta as well, so basically champions that have a continuous sustained gap closer are out of the meta, as well as like a movement speed, a movement displacement ability. With that said, champions like Sion, champions like Maokai, champions like Nautilus, pretty much like tanks with a single gap closer, and after that they have to wait a huge amount of time to, or just a good amount of time to actually escape again and use their gap closer. So you will get a lot of uptime with your ultimate. Couple that with your gravity field, couple that with your rallies, and couple that with a random stun that the enemy actually throws at you, and if you're being chased down by 1, 2, or actually 3 enemy melee champions that have not that many escape abilities, if they don't pop a flash, they're pretty much going to die in the next 4 seconds. And if you think about it, 4 seconds in the heat of battle is a lot of things can happen in 4 seconds, but at the same time, 4 seconds, if you drop a gravity field down and if you get like a random stun to help you out from your team, or maybe a snare or something like that, you're pretty much set. And this is a CC/tank meta, so if you position well, you will get a lot of uptime on your ultimate overall, especially when you have something like a ghost. So there is that. In my opinion, rallies into Void Staff will be completely core. You want to get as much uptime as you want. You want to get as much uptime as you want on your ultimate, so it pretty much is going to allow you to get the uptime that you need with the slow. Rallies is also going to help you with kiting enemies, so it's going to be both the defensive and the offensive tool. The Void Staff, of course, in this current tank meta, a lot of people go for the Spirit Visage, a lot of people go for the Hex Drinkers, so Void Staff will pretty much allow you to deal close to true damage since it doesn't function in the same way that the Last Whisper functions. It goes through the entirety of your enemy's spell resistances, which means that it doesn't go only through the bonus of the defenses like the Last Whisper does, it goes through all of the defenses of the enemy. So your damage will be significantly higher with the Void Staff. Now, there's going to be a lot of interesting interactions with the Rocket Belt, I believe. You will be able to have a gap closer as well as an escape mechanism in certain situations. And that's going to allow for a lot of uptime on your ulti as well, because you will be closer to the target. The ultimate was going to catch up faster with the movement speed that it gets from you. But I do believe that Rallies into a Void Staff will still be core on Viktor as first items, at least at this stage of the game's development. He will do extremely well against tank comps. Currently the meta is comprised completely out of tanks. You see 3 to 4 tanks in a team these days, so it's pretty much a no-brainer that he's going to do extremely well in the tank meta. He will have extremely good sustained damage against solo targets as well. And I will talk, this is really good. There is a specific thing that all mages in my opinion suffer from, and Viktor after this rework is gonna be one of the few mages that is really unique in that regard. So Viktor as a mage suffers from the same thing that a lot of mages suffer, which is there's a dead point in the game for mages. I will give you a quick scenario. So take as an example a Gragas jungle on the enemy team. He goes for the Cinder Hulk. The moment he completes his Cinder Hulk, you have no chance of one-shotting him with your full combo, even if you're slightly ahead. You just need the AP. You need the raw AP to go through all of that massive HP. That's pretty much all that the mages do. They unload their combo in less than a second or in 2 seconds or something like that, and then they're done. They have to wait 10 seconds so they can do it again. And in that time, you can pretty much die. There's no way that you can do anything. However, Viktor's changes will allow him to pretty much eliminate that dead point from the game. So his mid game is going to be completely insane against tanks, and he's going to be one of the few mages that are going to deal continuous amounts of huge damage bursts, sustained damage spikes against targets that have a lot of HP. So this is one of the things that I was really happy about, and when you thought about it, at first glance the changes look really bad, but if you think about it and how the meta actually evolved into this tank meta, means that Viktor's changes are actually pretty good when you think about it. He ties really well in this meta. So what else was I gonna talk about? We talked about heavy matches and attrition. There will be a lot of unknown interactions with the items that we still don't know about. We're gonna have to test them out with the rocket belt or whatever it's called, the new hex tech item. So yeah, I'm interested also about the gunblade as well. I want to see its ratios finalized, so I think that the gunblade is actually going to be a viable item as well. Although Rallies into a Void Staff is still gonna be core, but it might be a fun build to try out. But yeah, he's going to do extremely well against assassins, and against this tank meta it's just perfect. Like, his kit is amazing right now. One of the downsides is that his dueling potential will be severely limited. You will no longer be able to one-shot targets by just going in with the flash and just unloading your combo on them. Which is a big issue for me personally, because I really love that aggressive, reckless playstyle. And I'm kind of sorry to see it go. But the game is orientated more towards the sustained team fights and prolonged team fights. So, in my opinion, it's a good trade-off. You will not be able to have a lot of dueling potential against AD carries, AD assassins, and stuff like that. But in team fights, you will be an absolute monster with your sustained damage, and you will easily out DPS the enemy spellcasters in prolonged fights, because to be fair, a lot of spellcasters pretty much have only their burst, and at this point they have nothing else. Now, the things that I would have liked to see on Viktor. First, I want to see his lasers cooldown of the secondary explosion be lowered a bit. to 1 second. I do believe that 1.2 seconds is somewhat okay, but at 1 second it will not feel so clunky, if you will. I I think that 0.6 seconds was extremely fast. However, twice that amount it feels just really clunky. It doesn't feel that good. I believe that 1 second it will be completely satisfactory to use. The other thing that I would like to see, and these are pretty much the only things that I want to see changed about Viktor currently. I want only the laser secondary explosion to be lowered a bit, and I also want his ultimate to provide you with the new grounding mechanic. With that said, I don't want the grounding mechanic to be procced by every tick on the ultimate, but when you initially cast the ultimate, give him a grounding on the enemy for 0.5 or for 1 second. Because if you look at Cassiopeia's changes currently, she just spits out a wall of poison, which negates the enemy's escape tools completely. There is no way that the enemies are going to get past that wall with flashes or dashes. It's pretty much a death trap if you have allies. It's a huge slow, and it provides you with the escape negation as well. I really wanted to see something like that on Viktor's ultimate. Perhaps your enemy gazes in awe at the power and the awesomeness, of the Chaos Storm that unfolds before him. So I think that will be a really good trade-off, and it will be a really good compensation for the fact that his instant damage got nerfed, and you will have a bit more uptime on the target. Basically, you will actually do an auto attack when you jump on someone, because before, when you jump with the flash on the target, and when you did your whole combo, rarely you can actually do your auto attack, because the enemy would just flash away or they would use their escape mechanisms. Um, but yeah, we talked about how Ghost is going to be extremely good on him. We talked about the hard matchups. We talked about his dueling potential being severely limited. We talked about what his core build is going to be. We talked about a lot of things. Um, I do believe that this is pretty much that I have to say at this point. He's going to be extremely team reliant, like we already mentioned. An ideal teammates would be probably Mundo with the cleaver slow, since it's in a low cooldown and he can keep up the target slowed for a continuous amount of time, so you can just get more ticks on your ultimate or just force a flash. Nautilus, of course, with the huge lockdown, simply by throwing a Q and then doing an auto attack. Maokai with his lockdown as well. Like pretty much all of the champions that are meta currently in this stage of the game's development. But yeah, that's pretty much what I expected at this point. Viktor's changes, in my opinion, at first glance are really bad. But after you take a bit of time to actually see how the meta is going, and take a bit of time to realize that it's purely a tank meta, and the way that his new abilities and his new interactions are going to benefit him in this meta is just completely insane. So I'm really satisfied with the changes. I didn't expect him to be changed up to this level. However, I'm pretty happy with the way that he's going, and that's going to be it. To be fair, so I don't really believe that I missed something. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, this one's going to YouTube. Thank you all for watching. Catch me on twitch.tv/asduel, that's shameless plugin, where I play a couple of rankeds sometimes, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help. And hit me up on Twitter if you have also any questions, and I will see you next time. Thank you all for watching. Take care and have a good one.